Now, Peter, I'll do the screen and you just go through it, okay?
Okay.
That's
well,
grand.
be able to see it.
Okay, is that up? If you can see it, just put a message in the chat.
Yeah, I can see it. Yep.
Okay, that's grand.
Okay, playing regulations. The first click on, Pete. These are regulations that are common to all 3 adult men's competitions. So they are all 20 overs per side. In all competitions, the overs may be reduced. And the bowler's limit is always 20% of the total. So if you get an odd number of overs because of reductions and you're down to, let us say, 17, then I have to think very carefully. If 3 can do, no, 3 do 3 and 2 do 4. So it's the usual way of working it around. There are no bonus points. Points are straight, 20 for a win, 10 for a tie or no result, 0 for a loss. And there is a 15-minute interval between innings. So the standard operation would be that we start at 2 o'clock. The first innings ends at 20 past 3. The second inning starts at 25 to 4, and you should be finished by 5 o'clock. All clear? The Senior League Cup covers, as its title implies, the senior teams, the teams in the Premier League and the Championship. It's coloured clothing with a white league ball, league being the name of it. It's up to us as umpires to check that they're using the right ball. All bats used must fit through the batting cage. The permitted time allocation is 80 minutes for the beginning of the last over. No change from that as in recent years. There's a penalty of 6 runs per over for each over that the bowling side is short of that within the 80 minutes, plus the runs that they score. So if they've only bowled 18 after 80 minutes, there's an immediate penalty of 6 times 2, 12, and you continue playing to the 20 overs are bowled, so they get the runs plus the 2 bonuses of 6. Any weather delays, you deduct 2 overs from the match for every 8 minutes lost in the first innings, and 1 over from the match for every 4 minutes lost in the second innings. You can go down to a minimum of 5 overs per side. As usual, DLS sheets are to be provided at the innings break and subsequent interruptions. Power plays apply for the first 6 overs, and when you print out your regulations and have a look at them, table 28.7.2.3, it'll give you a table to work out what the power plays are if you reduce the overs. I presume we're going to circulate this afterwards, are we, Joe?
Yes, it'll be all circulated.
Yes.
That's great, yeah. Not as a substitute for reading the regulations, but just as an aid memoir. Okay, that's all the Senior League Cup. I've lumped the next 2 competitions together because they are broadly similar, the Tulane and the Middle Cup. Essentially, Tulane is divisions 3 and 4, Middle Cup is divisions 5 and 6. White clothing and a red league ball in the Tulane. Again, that's the brand of the ball. Standard red ball for the Middle Cup. No limits on bats in these competitions. PTA is exactly the same as it is in the Senior League Cup, 80 minutes before you commence the last over, and a penalty of 6 runs per over short plus the runs that they score. Delays are exactly the same. Deduct 2 overs from the match for every 8 minutes lost in the first innings, 4 minutes lost in the second. Again, minimum 5 overs per side, DLS, power plays for the first 6 overs. So largely similar to the Senior League Cup, except you're working with red balls and white clothes, and no bat limits.
Okay.
Okay, Peter, onward. I've lumped all the other cups together. Salva, Whelan, Russell Court, and a new cup this year, the Adamstown Cup. So this covers everything from Division 9 downwards. Is that right? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 from Division 7, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I've lost count here somewhere. So around there anyway. All white clothing, red ball, no bat limits again. The scheduled innings time is 80 minutes, but there are no penalties. Well, there's no provision for penalties to be applied. However, I think it's up to us as umpires to keep the game moving. There's nothing worse than a game where they're playing 12 overs an hour and you think the damn thing will never end. Now, a new regulation this year, I've given you a summary of it here, but you'll see the full text of it at 13.7.2.1.1. The OCC realised that a lot of clubs, particularly where there weren't umpires, were taking the law into their own hands and deciding, well, sure, lads, we'll never get a full game in. Why don't we just play a 30-over game or a 20-over game or whatever you're having yourself? So what this regulation says is that if the umpire's view is before the game starts that they're not going to get the full 20-over game in, they can make a decision on what length of game they wish to play, solely dependent on the expected weather conditions. So if you turn up for a 2 o'clock start and you look at your iPhone and it's quite clear that, you know, by 4 o'clock there's going to be lashing rain coming in, you can take the decision to say, fine, we will play a 10-over game on the understanding that we could have a 10-over game finish by 4 o'clock and be out of here before the heavens open. The reductions must be done in multiples of 5 overs. So essentially, your options are reduced to 15 or reduced to 10. What have I done? Peter, I've got your emails.
Sorry, do apologise.
So I say, essentially, you can go from 20 to 15 or 20 to 10. 10 is the minimum per side. But you may only make that decision on the basis of expected weather. So the fact that Joe has to start work at 4:30 and his captain would dearly love the game to be over by then, and will you please reduce it? The answer is no. And the OCC will attempt to monitor that. So if we get a bright afternoon, like we had in May, and there's not a cloud in the sky, and people start reducing games unnecessarily, we're going to take a very dim view. Minimum 10 overs per side. Wide is as per laws of cricket, not one-day wide. And the other change is we have finally got rid of that dreadful limitation on lakeside fielders. For years, there was a regulation in competitions at this level that said you couldn't have more than 5 fielders on the lakeside, as if anybody in Division 16 was able to bowl to a field of that side. So we've got rid of that. If you want to load 9 fielders onto the lakeside, you can, and good luck. The regulation, this one about reducing the game, has to be before the game starts. So you've got to make a judgment call, the two of you, on the likely weather outturn, and then go from there.
That is it, Peter, is it?
That's it. Like the maiden's kiss, short and sweet.
Okay. So
if anybody's got any queries.
Is there any questions? You can put them in the chat and I will read them out to Mr. Thew. Okay, we'll start. Just 1 second, Peter.
What about fielding regs? In what way, Marty?
Okay. Harshal Shah, how many umpires note the adjusted time and who is informed, etc.? Peter?
Sorry, would you repeat that, Pete?
Yeah, 1 second, I'll read them again. How do the umpires note this adjusted time? Who is informed, etc.?
Well, if there's an interruption?
Yeah.
Well, it's up to the umpires to make sure that the captains know, the scorers know.
Okay. Can this, Conor McInhiddy asks, can this reg be applied after the match has started?
No.
No.
No, the umpires have to make a judgment call before the match starts. Because we know DLS at this level, so you can't start reducing once the game has started. If you're going to play a 15-over game, you're going to play a 15-over game, that's it. Sorry, Marty, I think I forgot to read out the last bit of that, didn't I? There are fielding circles at this level, and it's 4 fielders inside the circle throughout the game.
Okay, and then fielding regs behind square leg.
Laws of cricket.
Okay, and William Clark, in the Senior League Cup, the cut-off time is 16:55. 16:59 with the last over starting at 16:59, not 1700 as stated by Peter earlier.
Yeah, correct. However, I think we're all going to need to be aware that with the safety issues that Paul's going to talk about later, there is the potential for the innings running on slightly if people need to clean things.
Okay, Bala has asked, is there a 30-minute wait before the overs are reduced in the Senior League, Killeen and Middle Cup?
If there are, I missed it.
Okay. We'll find that out for you, Bala, and we'll come back to you. No limit on the leg side applies to YM Salver and down, or is the Senior League and Tulane Cup? No.
YM Salver downwards.
Okay. Is there? Okay. No, there's no grace time.
Thanks, Will.
Thank you, William. Anyone else have a question?
Seriously.
Anyone else?
So the question there from Trini, I don't understand.
In Senior League, second innings will get 80, irrespective of first innings going over 80 minutes.
Yes, exactly the same as always been.
Okay.
Each innings is a separate time period.
Okay. Is there anyone else? As Peter did say, these PowerPoint will be sent to you all later on this afternoon.
Yeah, but please don't use this as a substitute for reading the regs. The regs are up on the website. The only ones that aren't currently up are the 20-over games, which I gather they're finalising as we speak.
Yes, Kevin has just come in, so I will get Kevin to talk about them. Do you want Kevin to talk about them now?
Well, I was wondering about Paul.
Okay.
I don't want him hanging around.
Sorry, Reg 16.34.2 in the lower league cups. What does that mean? Connor, can you tell us? You'd have to explain it a little more. I don't have the regs.
I do. I'll go and find them. Well, can I? Sorry, I probably can't. $16.3.2.
16.3.4.2.
No, it's not 16.3.2. Can you read it?
No, you read it there. I'll find them. I don't have them here.
I don't. Oh yeah, exit full screen. I've got them here. 16.3.2.
No result if a result can't be decided in this way, the winner.
If there's no result, 16.1.3 above. 16.1 safe and second measure the words. Yeah. So if both sides do not have the opportunity to bowl in the case of the competition minimum 5 overs. In a
16.3.2 is to be read in respect of 16.3.1, Peter.
This is in the semi-finals and the finals of the competition, not in the regular games.
No.
If there's a tie in a regular... These are round robins, with the winners of each group going through to a semi-final and then straight knockout there into a final. So if there's a tie in the games that we're umpiring currently, it is a tie. You say, grand, no account is taken of wickets. It's a tie. Good luck, good night, go home, 10 points each. It's only when you get to the semi-final or the final of the competition where we need to get a result that super overs start to kick in. And I decided it would only confuse matters at this stage of the season if I started talking about what we were going to do in September. Does that clarify?
Is that okay with everyone? And
If
what
there's no
happens?
result, there's no result. 10 points, both sides. Exactly the same as a tie. So there's 20 for a win, 10 for a tie, 10 for no result, 0 if you lose.
And there's no refixes this year.
No refixes at all, no.
Is that okay, Connor?
Is
Anyone
everybody
else?
happy? Are there any more questions before we move on? Everybody got their question answered? Yes?
Thank you.
Okay,
Okay.
thanks very much, Peter.
No
Next,
problem.
next person is Mr. Paul Reynolds.
Thanks, Peter. Okay, everybody. I'm not going to go into the return to play protocols in massive depth, but I want to give you 3 things. I'll give you a brief overview about how they came about, a few thoughts from the cricket Leinster end, and then, if you don't mind, maybe a few sort of personal umpiring thoughts as well. So, Cricket Ireland, or for a start, this is a Cricket Ireland document. Cricket Leinster has been a part of that, if you like, but very much a subservient part. So everything you read in those return to play protocols has come through Cricket Ireland. There was a huge amount of a good bit of medical know-how that went into it. They were taking advice from the ICC and from other national cricket boards. They're also taking advice from both sides of the border. And then everything was signed off for us by Sport Ireland. So it was quite a collegiate exercise, if you like, and quite there was lots of back and forth. Once Cricket Ireland came up with the draft, they then spoke to various stakeholders, which is a word I hate, but so they spoke to an umpiring and scoring group, of which Stella represented us. They then spoke to various cricket committees and various parts of Cricket Ireland to try and come up with something that was safe, something that would be approved by Sport Ireland, and something, that's it, and something that would keep us safe. So everything you now read has come through that process. Whether you agree with certain parts of it or not, there was a long and arduous process to get to that point. And just a few little things, actually, or one little thing. Talking to Joe a bit earlier on, and people mentioning saliva and sweat. It's interesting, the ICC, and someone might point me out this, the ICC doesn't mention sweat, but apparently all the cricket boards in the world wanted to veer away from that and wanted to include sweat. So although the ICC only says saliva, most chief medical officers of cricket governing bodies wanted to include sweat as well. So that's why there's a slight discrepancy there. The other thing I'd say before we sort of start looking at the protocol is, obviously, this is a very fluid document. So this was made perhaps 3 weeks ago. I think it was sort of finalised and sent off to Sport Ireland. Who knows what the next 3 weeks are going to bring? It could loosen up. It could become even less restrictions. It could go the other way, and there could be a lot more restrictions. So this is just what we have in front of us for this weekend, if you like. It could stay for the whole season the same, but be prepared that there could be changes also. So if those of you, hopefully everyone's had a chance to look at it. It applies to all of us as match officials, but even if you're going to a ground just as a a spectator. Look, it applies to everyone in cricket. It's well worth getting to know it. But as match officials, the first thing we'll all do on the morning of the game, and umpires and scorers are different in this respect, is you have to report that you're well and you're COVID-free, or that you'll have no symptoms of COVID. For scorers, you'll contact your own club COVID officer, or alternatively, your home club will have sorted that process out themselves. So as a scorer, you get onto your own club, and then the COVID officer of your club will contact the COVID officer of the away club. For umpires, you contact the COVID officer of the host club. That is before you leave the house for umpires and scorers and players. Now, the big issue there is I'm not sure too many clubs have been proactive in putting this in place yet. It'll be something that Cricket Leinster will be making sure clubs have in place over the next couple of days. But I see that from Bala there. So no, there's no current list. I know, Bala, I was down in Phoenix earlier on actually and talking to them. So for example, Phoenix don't know who is going to be taking that responsibility yet at the weekend. And to be honest, I guess a lot of clubs are probably in the same boat, that they might not know who is going to be around, at the weekend maybe. Over the next couple of days, I'd hope that we'll all have COVID officers for us to report to. Like all of this, if a club doesn't have a COVID officer, for instance, if you've got no way of knowing who to contact before you leave the house, we have a problem. There's no obvious answer. It shouldn't be up to us as umpires specifically, because we're dealing with a home club, to go looking for it. I'll be honest, it's up to each individual umpire what they want to do, whether they want to try and contact the club themselves in that instance. If people, and this is going to apply to a lot of the protocol, and I'll go through it as we work through it. But if you feel as an individual that the fact that the club hasn't got a COVID officer to report to, if you think that's too big a risk, well, you may have to not go. That's a personal thing. I hope every single club will have this in place by the weekend. Sorry, there's lots of chat. There's lots of messages coming in there. Let me deal with some of those. Willie, I'll get to yours around sweat and saliva as we move on. So Connor and asking who do we contact, and Will asking would we not contact the home team contact. So umpires have to contact the home team. Scorers contact their own team, whether they're home or away. And as I said to Connor there, hopefully there'll be a full list by the end of the week. We'll just have to see how that pans out. Shrini's asking there. It's a good question, in fairness, Shrini. Shrini's asking, if two umpires are appointed and one drops out for a Senior League Cup game, do you just stand on your own? I'll be honest, there's lots and lots of things this season that are going to be odd. There's no definitive answers to that, Srini, although the regulations do deal with them. And just what happens if an umpire drops out, I think. Someone who's not muted might have a look at that. Senior League Cup regs. Okay, so I'll come back to that one in a minute when we have an answer. So you've phoned a COVID officer, or you've contacted a COVID officer. It doesn't have to be by phone. It could be by mail, or however that club is doing it. You travel to the ground, you get to the ground. I'd advise, but this is only my personal advice, that people don't get to the ground too early. The toss is still half an hour before the match. And this actually isn't the protocol, but you don't want to be there 2 hours before milling around everybody. I would have thought an hour before is about right. Maybe even a bit later possibly, but the toss changed still 30 minutes before for the toss before the match. So bear that in mind, that when you get to the ground, and especially this weekend, this is new for us as umpires and scorers. It's also new for clubs. Hopefully everything will work smoothly, but like anything else that's new, be prepared for it not to be. So when you get to the grounds, this is scorers and umpires and players, you'll have to check in with a COVID officer on site. For any of you who've been involved in your own clubs or anything, that's something that's been going on for the last month or so. Umpires will arrive already clothed. There'll be no changing rooms. Scorers on arrival, the advice is probably a bit more relaxed. You should socially distance. That probably doesn't mean that you can be in the same score box. Again, I know the ECB have been very prescriptive. Much of this Cricket Ireland document gives the individual responsibility to do what is best. So for scorers, it may be better for one to be in the scorebox and one be outside. If it's a miserable day, people may have to score in cars or may have to come up with alternate safe options. As I said before, there are many, it's an odd season and people are going to have to think on their feet at times. But as I said, the main thing with scorers when they arrive at the ground is the socially distancing, and hopefully all clubs will have set up options for scorers, whether it is an alternate gazebo or something to give cover. I guess we'll have to see how that happens, but make sure you keep yourself safe when you're setting up. And it may not be, we're not going to be in ideal situations. It's pretty unlikely scorers are going to be able to be very close to their opposite number. So bear that in mind. So that's pretty much the pre-match stuff. Then we move to the toss. Everything is as you'd expect, with no handshakes, no the coin toss. One of the umpires will toss a coin. We'll pick up the coin. The away team will call as normal. You'll pick up the coin again. That shouldn't be too difficult. Ball selection. We need to check the balls. I've been thinking about this myself, that the protocol doesn't really go into it, but you can imagine a situation, especially lower down, where, I don't know, everyone says they're going to use new balls, and then the second innings one, you haven't had a look at it, and they just bring out an old tatty thing, and you could be in trouble. So much of the protocol, as I said, is about individuals taking responsibility. So as an umpire, if you have to touch that ball to begin with, check it. Do so. Maybe put it in your pocket, put it in your bag for the second innings, and then wash your hands or sanitize your hands. There is a certain amount of personal responsibility there. That is all of the pre-match stuff, I think. There's a load of questions coming in here, so let me go through that. Now, Shrini, sorry, I haven't got back to that. Your question about replacement of the umpire. Yes, I mean, the regular regulations. Oh, sorry, folks. My son's just come at the door. I've locked him out. The regulations deal with an umpire dropping out. So I say we just use that. So that's regulation 2.2.1 in the normal regulations. Amit says, will the COVID officers stay throughout the match? Yep, clubs have got to have COVID officers there the whole time. Can umpires and scorers contact the home captain to simplify the process? The process says that the club could have used that process. I know it's there in who's the umpire, but clubs may also say no, they don't want that. So because clubs have got to run the operation themselves, that's not something we can really tell the clubs to do. Assessors, Jean-Louis, nothing specifically apart from social distancing all day. Connor asking if there are no hand washing facilities or signage on arrival. I'll come to that in a minute, actually. Spare balls, Bala. Yeah, same as everybody else. I mean, make sure clubs have spare balls. They don't specifically have to be sanitized, if you like, but look, that's a tough one, Bala. The ball gets the whole principle around the balls is that we shouldn't be touching it, and if we do have to touch the ball, you should wash your hands or sanitize your hands immediately afterwards. So there's going to be instances where we're going to have to touch the ball. So if a spare ball gets thrown on, I pick it up, have a look at it, throw it to a bowler, and then sanitize my hands. And maybe he'll do the same. Again, it's individual responsibility to a certain time. Can the umpires use gloves? Yeah, you can, but there was a lot of discussion around this at Cricket Ireland level. It doesn't help things wearing gloves in this environment, because instead of, if you touch that ball, instead of just being able to then disinfect your hands or wash your hands, you're going to have to take your gloves off, safely dispose of the gloves, then go and put on another pair of gloves. So there's nothing to stop you wearing gloves, but Cricket Ireland advising you don't do that, and instead you wash your hands. Bala, PPEs. Yeah, again, so there was lots of talk from the umpire group. So gloves and masks in the end were not recommended for umpires. That came from a medical background, that the risk was so low that they wouldn't be needed. There's nothing to stop you wearing what you want, though. I might come on to this in a minute, but it was even said from an umpire's perspective, in a profession where everything is about communication, wearing a mask all day when the medical advice is that we're in a very low risk, if you can't communicate properly using your face, it really knocks you back as an umpire. That's the Cricket Ireland's advice. I personally bought masks. I was going to wear them. I'm probably not going to now, but look, it's everyone's own choice. Shrini, I'll come on to Shrini, what happens during the game in a minute, and Willie as well. I'll come on to that in a second. So we started the game. The protocol, to be honest, we were all quite scared at times, but the protocol doesn't really impinge on the game too much. So, for example, everyone has to stay 2 meters apart. Now, the original discussion from Cricket Ireland, fielders are always 2 meters apart from each other. That old thing of the slips, holding out their hands like that, slips have always been 2 meters apart. So that's not a problem. The highest risk problem, if you like, was the keeper standing up to the wicket. And in the protocol, batsmen are asked to walk away from the stumps after every delivery, and again with the keeper. That's more or less the only the only change, if you like. Batsmen should run up either side of the wicket, and everybody should socially distance the whole match. That's pretty much it, to be honest, in terms of controlling the match. Now, people have asked there, are we policemen? No, I suppose is the official answer. But look, we could all go looking for as much, as many COVID, what's the word? As many people breaking the protocol as we like. Players and umpires are all going to find it tough to begin with. There was an interesting thing from one of the England's warm-up games last week, that the first couple of days, everybody was handing their clothes and caps to the umpires. It happened about 10, 20 times. It didn't matter how often, just because they've done it their entire life. So let's not pretend, especially this weekend, that players are going to remember to do things automatically. I'd be very much, and this is from a Cricket Leinster viewpoint as well, we just have to educate this week. We shouldn't be going out there and saying to people every time they get within 2 meters, right, there's a team warning. It's absolutely about education this week, and possibly for the rest of the season as well. But look, let's see how that goes. Let me just jump back into the chats there. Some talking about slow bowlers starting their run up close to the umpire. Again, the feeling from the medical side of things at Cricket Ireland was that it's only going to be for a couple of seconds. They might walk back. It's possible it could be longer. As an umpire, feel free to walk away. Like if they bowl the ball, normally you would walk away if the ball gets hit away. Even if the ball isn't hit away, feel free to walk away a few yards and come back. Connor's asking, players spitting or exchanging clothing with one another. Yeah, that's in the protocols. They can't spit. They can't exchange clothing. Steve Wood, what do we say to a club that points out the Sport Ireland advises that social distancing is not required on the field of play? In fairness to the whole government thing is that the national governing bodies protocols sort of tie in with the Sport Ireland bit, so that the protocols are what leads, if you like. Women's matches. So Marty just asking if there will be COVID officers, Marty. If there isn't, they're in breach of the protocols. So there will be COVID officers. If the bowler does offers, Harsh is asking, offers clothing to you, no, you've just got to say no. And people will get used to it pretty quickly. They're not even supposed to give it to other teammates. They should just take it to the boundary and leave it by the side of the boundary. To be honest, pretty quickly, I think bowlers aren't going to be wearing jumpers and caps. But look, we'll see how that goes. So as we're going through, sorry, one thing I missed out at the beginning, team sheets. I know a lot of people have been asking about team sheets. So the ideal solution would be that someone traveling, with the away team or the home person would print those out themselves. Then they'd go to some point in the club. Someone would say, put the two team sheets up on a window, sellotape into the window. Everyone sanitizes their hands. Anyone who wants to see the team sheets can then see them. That's the ideal way. So the team sheets should be displayed so everybody can see them. DLS is obviously linked to that as well. So the DLS, in an ideal scenario, the scorers would say to the DLS operator, if you like, this is what it is. This is what you need to input. They go away, they print the DLS sheets. That person would then display them somewhere in the club, and then everybody can see them. So DLS sheets won't be passed to each person, if you like. The questions keep on coming. Who said that then? Enforcement, Connor. It's an interesting one. Yes, we have to enforce it, but we have to enforce it in like anything else. And I keep using the no ball as a similar scenario. I know it sounds quite trite and minor, but so with the no ball, you should always be talking to the bowler. Look, you're getting close there. Look, that was close. Geez, I couldn't quite tell with that one. If you get that close again, I might be calling you for your no ball. And in many respects, this is going to be the same thing. So look, if you see a player spit, especially this weekend, just say to them quietly, look, come on, you can't do that. If the first wicket goes down, I can guarantee people will be running up to each other. You just have to say to them, look, come on, please stay apart. And giving them, you know, multiple warnings, if you like. We're all in this together. And look, we have to try and educate. Now, obviously that can only go on for so long, but I really hope we're not going to get into any serious problems. Like, someone has got to be quite aggressively, if you ask someone not to spit, for example, and then they turn around and spit on the floor in front of you or something similar, then you've got a problem. Now, I don't think that's going to happen, but if it does, well, yeah, then you're going to have to, then you're going to have to go down that route. Matt's just saying there about the pre-match chat. Yeah, I agree. This is my personal view. This isn't in the protocol, but we're all in this together. There's going to be a lot of education this weekend, and all trying to work together. Let me just go back. Matthew, they're talking about the scorers. I'll let Peter come back to that later. I know a few on the OCC. I'm not sure who's here from the OCC, but there was a few queries about who's in charge, the umpires or the COVID officer.
Paul.
To be honest, again,
Paul,
Yep.
Kevin wants to say a word.
Paul, just
Yes.
from Cricket Leinster point of view, just as a brief update. Cricket Leinster is appointing from their staff base a certain number of COVID assessors, for want of a better term, to go to matches this weekend, starting Thursday night for the women and over the course of this weekend. And they will be working with the club to make sure that the club is enforcing the regulations that they need to. So in terms of the issue in relation to what the umpire's role is in relation to enforcing COVID stuff, effectively the umpire's role is on the field of play. So specifically it's related to social distancing and essentially saliva, whatever format it's used in. Everything else outside the boundary will be overseen between the Cricket Leinster assessor and the COVID officer from the club.
Thanks, Kev. Yeah, so Peter Thew's saying there, I suspect our biggest issue may be the bowler who bitchily licks his fingers before beginning his run-up. Yeah, I mean, I was talking to Hadley Southall, for those of you who know him in Railway, and he says he does that every ball for his entire career. That's impossible to stop, that's really hard to stop. Now, you've just got to manage it and maybe ask him to, I don't know, put an antiseptic wipe over it every time. This isn't going to be easy for all of us, but let's not go out there and find problems, if you like. I draw a sort of it's similar to ball tampering in some ways, right? You could absolutely closely look at the ball the whole match, and possibly you might find something, possibly you might not. It's difficult to prove. In this case, I'm not sure I'd be going looking for, if two people accidentally are running across and get within 2 meters of them, it's going to happen. So it's all about us just trying to deal with the serious stuff, if you like, and educating. That would be my big one. A question from Venkat there. On a wet day, a player is allowed to dry the balls with the same cloth. But one fellow saying, umpires wouldn't be provided the cloth. They're not supposed to share cloths, no. So they each need their own cloth. Satish said there wouldn't be. Satish is just asking, do we know who the COVID officer is from CL? So just in terms of terminology, the COVID officer is the person from the club who runs the COVID things. Cricket Leinster will have various members of staff going around grounds and liaising with them. So the COVID officer we will know before the game takes place because you have to contact them. The Cricket Leinster staff we just won't know. They'll be rotating, or we might know, but that's not something we need to know. Ashok, yes, that's something I forgot to bring up. Ashok, every one of us, and it's mandated in the protocol, should take sanitizer and wipes, actually, it says in the protocol. So that's a definite. Okay, a few other little things then I might have missed out. So spectators are not supposed to touch the ball. If the ball goes to the boundary, spectators shan't throw it in. Again, that's going to be impossible for us to actually stop, but just a gentle look. Sorry, you're not allowed to touch it or something like that. A question there from, Ballard, wipes. So the protocol says you should carry wipes, antiseptic wipes, I think is the phrase it uses. Look, I don't know. That's what the protocol says. Let me just run through the rest of it. So there is a warning process, as you've probably seen. So I'll read it out. On-pitch sanctions should be in place for use of saliva, spitting, or contravening social distancing protocols, with a team warning, final warning, 5 penalty runs, and if behaviour persists, the player can be asked to leave the field of play and cannot be replaced. I'm really not expecting us to have to do that, okay? But it is there in the protocols. Have a read. Between innings, obviously there's only a 15-minute gap. Everyone should wash their hands. Food and drink, similarly, there'll be no teas. You should take your own food and drink. Take home all litter with you. And keep social distancing. And then after the game, again, it's just you have responsibility as an individual to stay apart from everybody else. Shower at home. It's up to us to make sure that works. Now, I'll deal with any questions in a minute. One other thing that came up during the week was the time allowance. And I know Peter put a lot of that up in the regulations. There was IACUS thanks to Will for personnel, and IACUS was saying about increasing the time allowance to 90 minutes. But Cricket Leinster aren't adopting that. Now, the reason why, you can imagine if teams were given an extra 10 minutes for say COVID, for removing their clothing off the pitch, and then they went 15 minutes over. You're going to say, I know you've already got 10 minutes. Hopefully you're not. So just keep it at 80 minutes. We're going to keep this. I'd be very disappointed. Hopefully people don't take this the wrong way. If anyone is penalised penalty runs because of going over time this week, everyone's learning. It's all about education. There might be a scenario where people are absolutely crawling through the overs, but from a Cricket Leinster point of view and from an umpiring point of view, if we give penalty runs for slow over rates and then clubs are saying, but we were just trying to abide by the COVID regulations, it doesn't reflect pretty well on anyone involved, really. So I'd absolutely hope, and sorry, this is a personal umpiring thing, really, and a Cricket Leinster opinion. I'd hope that people would be pretty relaxed around giving time allowances this weekend, especially. That's pretty much it for me. I think there's a few more questions there. Dakshina Murthy's asking about clothing. It's not one for me, so someone else can take that. Peter Searson, what does the Cricket Leinster person do to the club if protocol aren't being followed? Do we abandon or do they? What if the CL officer isn't present? Good questions, Peter. So if there's a Cricket Leinster person on site and they decide that it's not safe, then they do that, and we just follow their instructions. If there isn't a Cricket Leinster officer, if a Cricket Leinster officer isn't present, I suppose that's quite a big one. Most games won't have Cricket Leinster people there. I'd be honest enough to say that you can imagine a situation where everything is perfect, everyone's happy, a Cricket Leinster officer leaves, and then all hell breaks loose, and I don't know, the bar's opened and social distancing goes out the window. It is all about personal responsibility, okay? If you don't feel safe, make sure you feel safe, if you like. If it means umpires walking off, I'm not encouraging it, but it's all about safety. If let's take a hypothetical situation that you're on a ground, or you're at a game, everything's going well in the ropes, but outside the ropes there's a crowd of 200 people, there's no social distancing, the bar's open. I think we're well within our right just to say, look, sorry, I don't feel safe. So look, safety comes first. No one should feel that they have to stay on the ground just because they're representing the LCU&SA and Cricket Leinster. Again, I don't think that'll happen, but it's all about safety and personal responsibility.
Paul,
Sorry, who said that?
sorry, it's Paul, Joe Connolly. I'm just wondering about the safety. I don't know this, but there was a rumour that Phoenix opened their dressing room for the home team last weekend. I can't prove it, but someone told me. They said, as far as they knew, they opened their dressing room. That would really cause problems.
Yeah. Look, it's not allowed, and I suppose the one thing with last week is that it raised not a few issues. That's not fair. They weren't Cricket Leinster competitions, if you like. So last weekend they were just friendlies, but it did. The alarm bells have gone off, Joe, if you like, in some respects. That's one thing. So I think Harsh just asked there about some form of safe storage within locker rooms or club premises. No, there isn't. So there'll be no locker rooms. There'll be nowhere for us to put our kit. So if you're not driving to a game, it's not easy. But ask, maybe your partner might have driven to the game, your colleague. Maybe someone else can lock stuff in their car. Maybe the scorer can look after your valuables. But yeah, the inside of clubs will not be used. Now, there are exceptions, obviously. If a club was serving food, then it's just the government guidelines. But I don't think there's any cricket club that is in a position to serve food. So there shouldn't be any bars open at all. Ballas asked about toilets. It's mandatory that all clubs have access to toilets. They should be, and they should be cleaned. Now, I don't know if there's anyone else who's Leinster CC members, but going way back, there's a small toilet by the change rooms in Leinster CC that I reckon they might use in this. I'm not sure it's been cleaned since about 1996, to be honest. It's not any particular type of club that's going to be the issue. Every single club are going to have particular COVID issues that they could fall down on. So, look, as I say, we're all in this together. I don't want to witter on for too long. Hopefully, that's everything. Willie's asking there. Toilets in public parks, no guarantee they're clean. There's no guarantee anything's clean. Toilets in public parks should be being kept clean for COVID by the local council. It's the same as anywhere else. Sorry, keep coming those questions. I know this is very important. Yeah, sorry, that's a good question Peter Searson's asked. So for those of you who didn't know, Cricket Ireland have restricted us and umpires and scorers to one session, and players, one session per day. So we all have to do only one T20 match per day. That's players, umpires, scorers, even spectators are supposed to be limiting their sort of exposure to one sort of 4-hour session. Now, I know that's going to be abused. Now, Peter has asked what happened if youth plays in the youth match earlier that day and then play in the senior game. What do you do? As umpires, I suggest you don't do anything. But it may be worth it. I say you should probably, if you know it, just send an email to the Cricket Leinster office afterwards. Stephen Hadley asking, did we deal with sweat on the ball? Not particularly. Willie mentioned as well, actually, that sweat is in the Cricket Ireland protocols, but it's not in the regulations. The protocol overrides the regulations. Whereas the ECB have been very specific in theirs about what you do if something goes on the ball. Cricket irons haven't taken their approach. So again, it's down to individual what you feel comfortable with. See, the thing with sweat getting on the ball, okay, there's the obvious thing of a bowler getting it off his forehead and wiping it on the ball or whatever. But there's going to be sweat on the ball all the time because their hands are going to be sweaty. So, okay, you could ask a bowler to, or you maybe could get a wipe around the ball, but it's not really going to do anything because then the bowler puts it in his hand and he could be sweating all over the ball anyway. So, look, it's more for show, that one, to be honest. And Siobhan just pointing out, it's the touch points at the critical points, door handles, etc. So yeah, antiseptic wipe or IPA wipes. Again, down to personal responsibility. So as I said, it's going to be an interesting weekend for all of us, whether we're umpiring or scoring or playing or spectating or anything else. There could be loads of things, so please actually don't keep it to yourself, and even distribute amongst the umpiring community, but also Cricket Leinster. The more knowledge we get about how things operate, the better. If you have work, everybody keep safe. Everybody, if you have worries, don't be afraid to pass them on. That's my piece. Keep the questions coming if you need them.
Paul, thanks very much for that. Thank you.
There's one question there from Martin Block. Paul.
Sorry, what happens to the ball at the fall of the wicket? Good question. I don't know if you're watching the test match, they were doing the same actually. Just roll it back on the pitch to the bowler, to the umpire, or just leave the ball in the middle of the pitch. Now, it does lead on actually to a slightly different one. We all think of all these things when the sun's out and the sun is shining. If the pitch is soaking wet or there's a drizzle, it's going to be that much harder. So again, purely from an umpiring perspective, and think of our scorers as well. If there's a light drizzle that last year maybe you were staying on, well, maybe we should go off. Except if there's not enough cover, maybe people are safer staying on. So look, because at least if people all go off and 30 people shelter underneath the tree, it's an awful situation. So look, again, I know you probably don't want to hear this, but sometimes we're going to have to think on the hoof. Connor is just saying, what if we arrive at a venue and there's nothing there? It shouldn't happen. Connor, Cricket Leinster are being very proactive in making sure that any grounds, twice, and people might not like me saying this, but I think the bigger problems are going to be at the bigger clubs with more people rather than the small grounds in parks. But if you get to a grounds and you don't feel safe, don't umpire. So if you get a ground and there's nothing there, I'd be the same. I don't think I'd stay, to be honest. It's all about safety and personal responsibility. If you get there and you don't think, they've got like 3 bottles of antiseptic, everything's there, but you think maybe there should be an extra bottle of antiseptic wash. Yeah, maybe I wouldn't, walk out of the grounds then. But look, if there's serious misgivings and if you don't feel safe, no one will judge you for the worse if you don't stand on the game. And as Siobhan says, each club should have appointed a full safety committee. One of these can be there at all times. So even we said earlier on, it doesn't have to be the single COVID officer that is on the ground all day. It can, there just has to be someone there on the ground who is nominated as the COVID officer. Peter Thew asking again. Sorry, Peter, I didn't mean that. Ballard asked it earlier on, but does Cricket Leinster intend to produce a list of COVID officers by club? Yes, I'm sure there will be the one, but I've asked it today of lots of clubs don't know at the moment is the problem. And the other thing as well, Pete, is that, as Siobhan's just said, clubs could have like 3 or 4 COVID officers on a day. So that communication piece, the ideal way would be a home club would contact all umpires, or the 2 umpires, or the 4 umpires for the day possibly, and said, I want you to ring this number, 9 o'clock on Saturday morning or whatever. That's the ideal. But look, let's see how we go, folks. Sorry, Joe, all yours.
Okay, Paul, thanks very much for that. Is Kevin still there? Kevin Gallagher?
I am indeed, yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to jump in?
No, not particularly, nothing
No.
much.
You don't want to talk about women's regs or any of those, or?
I think Siobhan might say something about that.
Okay, Siobhan, I'll put you on. Just find your Siobhan here. Oh, there we are. Hello, Siobhan.
Hi, how are you? Okay, so yeah, we just met tonight at 8 o'clock and just ran through our regs. Most of them, any changes are minimal. I guess they're mostly COVID related, and you've covered I think all of that now. I know I missed the first half hour, but I'm guessing that was all covered. And the other one that would be a change from last year are the start times are 6 o'clock in July, 5:30 in August. I think that's probably the main change. Am I missing anything? Let me see.
No, that's it.
That's it. Thanks, Kevin. So they will get them sent to you tomorrow morning. Tony, if Tony's there. But it's pretty minimal. Trying to have as little change as possible. We've enough going on this year. But it's in the effort to play as much cricket as possible, and everyone be responsible and take responsibility, players and umpires and scorers, and it's in our hands too what we do. So if we all take a responsible approach, and don't wait for other people to do it, I think it'll make it a lot more simple. And thanks for the opportunity to say that here.
No problem.
Okay, well, before I close,
I have Matt Anson who wants to speak next.
I have something to say before he does.
Okay.
Let's pull it around.
I'm going to use my power. As Paul Reynolds mentioned, it's not going to be easy for us. It's not going to be easy for the players. So the word is common sense. You don't want to be reaching for a notebook the first time something happens. Otherwise, we're going to get nowhere. Matt Anson wants to speak, but before he does, I want to speak. There have been some people sort of hammering on about where's the appointments, what's happening, why haven't we got appointments? All of this thing is being done with like fire brigade stuff because it's all coming in. It took a while before the protocol came out. Matt is doing the best he can. He's got a job, he's got kids, and he's moved into a new house. So, he'll do his job, but he doesn't have to be hounded all the time. Okay? Now, Matt.
Thank you, Joe.
Yours.
Yeah, and to be fair, the vast majority of people haven't been, and have treated it with the common sense. The phrase you used there, Joe, is common sense. The common sense that it deserves, and realise that this is a firefighting job. Just the one thing I will say is, most of you will have appointments for the next 2 weeks. I'm working on the rest of the season appointments, but please be aware that we've already seen 5 changes to venues over the next week or so, as grounds get COVID ready, and some grounds are not going to be COVID ready. There will be venue changes, there will be switches, sometimes maybe even last minute. So please keep an eye on who's the umpire. Please also keep an eye on Cricket Leinster, just in case. And if the COVID officers are doing their job, you will be speaking to them the day before a game anyway, but I would just check in triplicate before you go to a game. That's the only thing I would say. But thank you for everybody for making yourself available, and please keep doing so.
Right, I don't want to hold anybody any longer. Just to remember, if we do find continuous problems, which I hope we don't, let us know, and we can hold another Zoom meeting and see what the problems are. Otherwise, thanks very much for your time.
Sorry.